Okay, so the second thing I wanted to cover is how to go about writing your own function and troubleshooting that function and just getting something that works. So I've set up a fake goal here. So let's say as a homework problem, we need to get the administrative level 1 data for a country, combine it with the estimated April precipitation raster, which we have in a file, and then display those two things on a map. So I think the easiest way to go about it is, rather than trying to make a function straight off, is you set an example and you try to get that example working, and then we can generalize from the example. So in this case, let's work on getting data for Brazil. So the first thing to do is actually, and this is something I do when I'm writing code on my own, is actually write out in English step by step what is it that I'm trying to accomplish. So step 1 would be to get the admin level 1 data for the country. Step 2 would be to load the raster. Step 3 would be to combine the data. And then the step 4 would be to display on a map. And then, of course, once we've done this, step 5 will be to turn it into a function. Great. So first thing we need to do is get the admin data for a country. In this case, we'll do Brazil. So the Brazil data. So we know we use the getData function because we've used this before. So if we look at getData, you see the name. Currently supported are GATM, countries, SRTM, alt, and world climb. We want GATM. That's just the name. It stands for Global Admin. This is what it's short for. So we want the GATM data for country Brazil. And then level is 1. Great. Okay, so we ran it. Does Brazil work? Let's plot Brazil. And we should see here, this is the plot window. Great, perfect. So we've completed step 1, go us. So now the next thing to do is to load the precipitation raster from file. So in this case, it's sitting here in this part of my computer here. These are the precipitation rasters month by month. We need 4 for April. And just to save us a little bit of time down here, I grabbed the code to load this, just so I wouldn't have to type in the path. So let's go precip is this. So we're using the raster function to load the raster. Great. Let's go ahead and run it. And so, by the way, I'm just running this by hitting Control-Enter. Now, if we look at precip, it seems like it loaded. Great. Let's plot precip and see what we get. Okay. So it looks like we have precipitation data. Obviously, this appears to be in millimeters, so average precipitation. However, we have a problem. This data is for the whole world, and we only want the data for Brazil. Luckily, we have taken care of this in earlier homework using the crop command. And so if we don't remember what crop does, let's take a look. So you can crop a subset of an object as specified by an extent object. Great. So what we need to do then, so what exactly does that mean, crop? So if we take a look at admin, let me bring this up so we can actually see the data. So we see that the extent of admin, so basically how big admin is, let's go ahead and plot admin again so we can see this. I think if we use axes equals true, we can see the axes. Yes, great. So we can see that it goes from -73 to about 28 in the x direction, and then -33 to 5 in the y direction. So that's great. So now if we take a look at, what did we call it, precip? Precip is -180 to 180, -90 to 90, in other words, the whole world. So that's a problem. We need to crop it down. So now, going back to our source, we are going to we'll call it CRP for crop. And so we are going to crop, what do we want to crop? We want to crop the precipitation data. Based on what? Based on Brazil. Great. So now we've got CRP. There's something there. Let's see if it is what we want. Okay, so it's kind of what we want. So now we see that it has set the bounding box to what we asked it to do. However, we still see that this isn't just Brazil. We have Paraguay here, we have parts of Argentina, so this is not what we want. We just want Brazil. And so there is a way to do it. We haven't run into it in class yet, but we'll see it soon, and it's called mask. So mask creates a new raster object that has the same values as x, x being what you feed it, except for the cells that are NA. So you can rask either using another raster object, and so in which case cells that are not covered by the spatial object are set to NA. Great. So let's call it mask is mask. So what are we masking? We're masking crop based on Brazil. Great. So let's run that. And so this takes a bit longer. In this case, not too long. Cool, so we've cut out Bolivia and Paraguay and probably Chile and Argentina, and now we are only looking at Brazil. Cool. Next step, we need to display this on a map. And so the way to do it is we'll go ahead and plot mask, because that's what we want to be looking at. I'll run it, but we just did it, so nothing's going to change, except it should display down there, but I want it to display in this corner window for us. Great, so we've got mask again. And then here's the thing. So we need to add the Brazil data to it. So if I try going using plot Brazil, all right. It's going to make me do it by hand. Sorry about that. Great, so okay. There's the problem. So we need to combine these two plots so that we have them in a single plot. And the way you do it is using add equals true. Cool. Now, if I try to run these, it doesn't really seem to work. So what happens is if you're using an RMD file, you're not allowed to add to a plot for reasons that aren't worth explaining. So I think the easiest thing to do to test is actually honestly just to copy and paste the 2 lines manually. And now we can take a look. Okay, cool. So now we have the precipitation of Brazil as well as the states of Brazil. So here we have, you know, this is the Amazon, and now we can see the state borders. Great. So now we have everything we need to turn this into a function. So in order to turn this to a function, we need to get from Brazil to any country. And so I'm just going to combine this a little bit, and we'll go out to set a function up. And so the way I would do this is, let's get a name for the function. Let's call it April Precip is a function. And now we need to know what data do we need to give it. So the raster has the whole world, so that's great. The only thing we need to give it then is the country we need. So let's feed it country as a function. So there's the opening of the function, and then the closing of the function will be here. And just by custom, I'm going to go ahead and indent everything, just because it makes readability a lot easier. So step 1, so now we need to edit this. So instead of getting Brazil, it gets country. Cool. So literally that's all you need to do. Now you'll tell it the name of a country or the 3-letter code of a country, and it will get the country. This is a little bit confusing, I'd say, because we've called this Brazil, so maybe we can call this CTRY for country instead. And then we need to go and look for any time we call Brazil, we need to use CTRY instead. Cool. So now we have what should be a working function. So let's go ahead and load the function. We can run it. And one thing I've noticed is that confuses students is when you run a function, people are concerned because it doesn't seem to do anything. So it not doing anything is correct. When you create a function, running the function, the only thing it does is set up the function. You still have to call it to run it. So let's try this. As we can see, so let's pick a different country. Weren't we? I believe we were working with Tanzania in this homework. So let's call April precip for TZA. All right. And so now we wait. And there we go. We have the precipitation data for April for Tanzania. And so that's hopeful in terms of, I hope that helps in terms of thinking about how to create a function. So like there's two sort of issues. One is I don't know the command to do a thing, and that's a relatively easy problem to solve because you can Google it or you can get help resources. The other thing is I don't understand the concept, and so the way to get that settled is to sort of plot out step by step what is it that I'm trying to do, and then it's much easier step by step to figure out how to do that.